is always a treat whenever I get an opportunity to spend some time in person with Jeffrey Gurian. But when I get to do it on the radio, the treat is not just mine, it's yours. Jeffrey Gurian, if you are not familiar with Jeffrey Gurian, I almost envy you because you are in store for a delightful hour of happiness, of positive thinking, of humor, of great stories. If you already know who Jeffrey Gurian is, then you already know what you're in store for, but you should still keep listening anyway. Jeffrey Gurian is a comedy writer, a stand-up comic, a host, an author, a producer, a director, and, of all things, a former dentist. And he's a friend of mine. Jeffrey, it's great to see you again.
Frank, it is so good to be here. Really, I love the show. I love what you do, and you put out positive energy to your audience, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, we definitely try. How's the summer going for you so far?
Well, I made the mistake of going to a beach party yesterday in 100-degree weather.
Oh boy!
And it was out at Reese Park, and I accepted because they were friends of mine, and I walked 20 minutes on the sand, and you know how hard it is to walk on the sand in general. For some reason, they set up a tent very far away at Fort Tilden Park, and I felt like I was going to faint.
Reese Park is in Rockaway, right?
Yeah. And, I stayed a couple of hours. It was fun, but the walk, I should have never done that to myself. It's actually very dangerous to be out in the heat. And you can see, if you look at my shoulders, that's the sunburn I got on my shoulders.
Sunblock? Did you wear sunblock?
I wear sunblock.
And you still got burned?
I still got burned.
Are you a
100
swimmer?
degrees.
Do you swim?
No, I don't swim. Well, if I do swim, it's in a pool. I don't go in the ocean, especially with all the shark stories now.
Yeah, right.
I'm not looking to do any of that. People belong on the land, I think, not in the water.
You know what I've been meaning to ask you, even privately, but since we're here on the radio, I'll ask you publicly. I don't know how you find the time to manage your schedule because clearly you're doing a lot of writing, both in terms of jokes, in terms of bits, in terms of humor. Then I feel like you're out there everywhere and you do such a great job marketing yourself. And then you're covering all sorts of events and doing interviews at the events. How do you balance? Because I struggle with this myself, right? How do you balance finding the time to be creative and to write and finding the time to market yourself and go to all the functions that you need to be in order to be a visible presence?
What's
your secret? Is there three of you? Is there a Jeffrey Gurian double somewhere?
Yeah, people often say that. I'm everywhere, right? I slept many years ago. That was the story. I don't need a lot of sleep. I prioritize. I do everything that I enjoy doing. So, for instance, this coming week on Wednesday, I'm going up to the Montreal Just for Laughs Festival. It's their 40th anniversary. It's the biggest comedy festival in the world, the oldest comedy festival. I've been going for at least 30 years. They think that I might be the longest attendee. I actually found my VIP pass from 1992.
Are you kidding?
And it's in pristine condition.
Of that, I'm not surprised. Either of those things, that you still have it or that it's in good condition. I want to talk to you about the Just for Laughs Festival in a second. But just I'm going to try one more time on your creative process, right? Do you, how disciplined are you with your writing? Do you say, all right, 1 hour a day, I'm going to, set aside everything and do some writing on my book or on a routine? Or do you just write things down as you get struck with inspiration? How does it work?
It's interesting. Well, it's even interesting to me. I carry notes with me all the time. When I think of something funny, I write it down. I use my ADHD to my advantage. We're all a little bit OCD, a little bit obsessive. When I start writing, I can write for hours at a time. I don't have a schedule. I write when I need to. If I'm writing for a comedian and they need something tomorrow, I'll stay up all night if I have to and write. I have that ability. I guess it's a gift. I can write, when I was writing my books, my happiness books, I just wrote nonstop every day. I'm inspired. When I'm inspired to say something, I put everything else aside, and I just managed to fit it in. The most important thing that I fit in is my family. I don't neglect my family. I visit my children all the time. That, to me, is my priority. Everything else gets fit in. I don't really know how I do it. It's just I'm an A-type personality.
That's great.
And I make sure I get things done. I'm very reliable. I'm always early, never late on a project.
No, I don't doubt that. I was reading about you in Page Six. You're a regular in the pages of Page Six, and for a second I was surprised, and then immediately I was not surprised to learn that you're in the midst of a collaboration with my friend Noel Ashman. The reason I was surprised for a moment is because I've known Noel for probably about 20 years, known you for a bit, and I didn't know that you guys knew one another. And then the reason my surprise was very short-lived is because both of you seem to know everybody, so it really shouldn't have surprised me that the two of you know one another. Noel Ashman is a nightclub impresario, a film producer. Tell me about you're actually writing 2 films in collaboration with him. Tell me about this collaboration with Noel.
Well, first of all, you can't live in New York and not know Noel.
It's true.
And I mean, he's owned so many clubs and big clubs, Veruca and the Plum, and just like on and on. And he's always been in that. And I was on the nightlife scene for many years. Which is important in New York City.
And the interesting thing is, neither of you are a drinker. You're not a drinker, and neither is Noel.
And Noel is not a drinker, and that's how we get things done.
I guess so.
When you're a drinker, you get a lot of drinking done,
That's
but
true.
not much else.
That's true. Maybe that's the secret sauce in the creative process that I'm missing.
Well, people have a lot of plans when they're drinking. They just
true.
never come to fruition, right? They're planning a lot on the bar stool, but if you're not drinking, you're actually out doing stuff. So Noel and I have been friends for a long time, and then he went into film production, and he's done I think 18 or 20 films already. It was just announced that he's doing John Travolta's new film. He recently did one with Bruce Willis. So I showed him 2 scripts that I wrote. One is a romantic comedy, which is in the vein of the way I usually work. I'm known as a comedy writer, but then I wrote my first non-comedy project.
And if people, by the way, people aren't familiar with Noel's work, a lot of the films that he tends to make, they're sort of action films that tend to be more popular maybe overseas than they are here in the United States, right? Yep. So a romantic comedy is not necessarily in his bailiwick.
Not usually.
Not usually.
But this is a fun story. It's a romantic comedy about a very unlikely couple. So if you could picture like Woody Allen and Kate Upton, maybe, something like a nerdy comedian who becomes very cool during the course of the film, and this beautiful girl who had been dating a Hell's Angel who for some unknown reason falls for this Woody Allen type character. And it's a very unusual story. I try and write things that have not been done before.
And what's the name of it?
Baby and Max.
Baby and Max.
Baby and Max,
okay.
Yeah. And people like the title. It's a really feel-good story. Really a feel-good story about a guy who starts out as nothing and very pro-women story. And he becomes a huge star, and this beautiful girl was always loyal to him, but he starts treating her badly when he becomes very famous, and he winds up losing everything. And I don't want to tell you the ending.
No,
hopefully,
absolutely.
But
we'll look forward to seeing that. What's
the
really
timeline
nice
story
for the production of that?
Well, it's in pre-production, so hopefully within a year or so, a year and a half. Films take time.
Sure.
We're in the process of casting it. The other project that got on Page 6 was a film called Men of Violence. And it's a gangster martial arts film, but there's a lot of humor in it too. And you have to be careful when you do that kind of a film. It's like Pulp Fiction was very violent,
right,
but also had some funny scenes
Absolutely.
in it. That's what this is. Men of Violence, it's a very different kind of film because it's about a plastic surgeon who has to go up against the mob, a plastic surgeon obsessed with violence, who carries guns and studies martial arts, and through some crazy thing, he accidentally kills a mob boss's son.
Wow.
And the mob boss was a patient of his who told him, "You have a friend for life." And then he accidentally kills this mob boss's son, and he has to become the most dangerous man on the planet in order to save himself and his family.
Wow. Now, I mentioned that Baby and Max was a little bit of a departure from a lot of Noel's previous work. This film, Men of Violence, that's a little bit of a departure from the kind of work that you usually do.
Very much so.
A lot of the work that you do is usually a lot lighter.
Yeah, very much so. It was a hard thing for me to write, even. I guess there's a part of me that finds that interesting. I wrote it a while ago. I did early versions some years ago, and I don't even know that I would write it today because I much prefer to put out positive, happy stuff than there's enough violence in the world.
But you're done now. Signed,
I'm
sealed,
done.
and delivered.
Yeah,
It's
done
written.
and done, and he likes it, and other
Great.
people like it. The late Tony Sirico was a very good friend of mine, and he read an early version of it, and he said, "If you don't put me in this, I'll break your legs."
When Tony Sirico
And he
makes
meant
that
it.
threat, he means it. Absolutely.
I was nervous. All the years I knew him, I was always nervous around Tony. I mean, he was a great friend, and I put up something like, on my Instagram, which is at Jeffrey Gurian, by the way, if anybody is listening,
Right,
who's on
Gurian.
IAN. There's a little video that we did together when he's talking about comedy. It was comedy matters over here. This guy over here, comedy matters.
See, I feel like in Tony Sirico's life, there's two groups of people. There's the folks that knew him prior to The Sopranos, and there's the folks that knew him once he was on The Sopranos. Which category did you fit into?
Prior. I know him from the Columbus Cafe days back in the 80s. Did you ever hear of Columbus Cafe?
Yeah. I my friend Richard Bay used to go there.
Exactly.
I heard a lot of
I saw
stories.
Richard there every
Mark
night.
Simone used to go there.
We were
I've heard
there.
A lot of,
I was there every night. I had a table, and it's where I met Danny Aiello, and Stallone would come in, and Schwarzenegger. The biggest stars in New York. Bruce Willis was there all the time. Mike Tyson, that's where I met him.
Why was Columbus so cool? Why was it such a spot that celebrities would flock to and to see and be seen? Why was that? What made it so special?
Paulie Herman. Paulie Herman was like the glue. There were two brothers, Paulie and Charlie Herman, and they ran Columbus. It was on 69th Street and Columbus Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever that magic was, there was never a place like it before and never since. There's never been a celebrity hangout
what happened?
in
Why
Manhattan.
did it close?
I don't know. Paulie went out to L.A. and opened a place called Ago, and I went out there a couple of times, and I was there. I went to that restaurant, and it was fantastic. I don't know why it closed eventually in New York. I think things may have just changed, but I remember the first night I met Mike Tyson, he pushed me out of the way. I was talking to Robin Givens, and he picked her up and put her over his shoulder and walked up the stairs. I was talking, and he just nudged me out of the way. It was
they married
hilarious.
at the time?
No, I think it was the first night that he met her.
Oh,
actually,
that's wild. That's wild.
I think, yeah, but I'll never forget that. I was talking to her downstairs. There was this downstairs area, and all of a sudden he comes in, hits me with his shoulder, and picks her up, puts her over his shoulder, and walks up the stairs.
The nice thing about, in your case, if you're on the receiving end of a Mike Tyson knuckle sandwich, is you can do the cosmetic dentistry yourself.
Exactly.
Right?
I would have had to, believe me.
We're talking with Jeffrey Gurian. He's the host of Comedy Matters TV. You can check out his website, comedymatterstv.com. That's comedymatterstv.com. Ton of interesting stuff on there. Now, Tony Sirico, he had this reputation, I think deservedly so, of being a tough guy, a little bit of a ruffian. But in your experiences with him, it sounds like he was pretty nice.
You know what? He was always kind to me, and we had some funny experiences, one of which turned out on page 6. We were about to take a picture together for the newspaper, and I put my arm around him. He goes, no, real men don't do that. He made a fist, and he put his fist under my arm, and he goes, that's how real men take a picture. And that wound up on page 6, that Tony Sirico says, real men don't hold each other like that.
You were also, speaking of Noel Ashman again, it was, I saw that you were in page 6 for attending his birthday party as well. He invited me to this. It was at the Hustler Club. I wasn't able to make it, but I must say, I've never been to a Hustler Club, let alone for a birthday party. There was a who's who of folks there. Bo Dietl was there. Either Ice-T or Ice
and
Cube.
Coco. Yeah, Ice-T and Coco.
I still can't. I can't keep my ices straight. How was the birthday party? I mean, you have a birthday party at the Hustler Club. It's got to be pretty unique.
All his parties are the same. They're crowded with people. He gets a tremendous crowd to show up, always, Noel, and it's always in another club. I wish he would open a new club. He actually told me that he's looking for a space because he wants to do a comedy night there, and of course I would be doing the comedy night. So I'm hoping he gets another thing because he runs great clubs in New York, and the party was wild. I mean, I brought a date, so I wasn't looking at whatever else
you weren't
was going
ogling
on.
the strippers or
no,
anything.
No, not at all. No, I was just hanging out in the VIP area upstairs. You had to wear a bracelet in order to get upstairs. Most of the people were downstairs, but then there was this little area upstairs where Ice-T was there, and a lot of the old-time New Yorkers, Tommy Puccio, I don't know if you know Tommy Pooch, came up from Miami.
I know who he is. Yeah.
He moved up, and an old dear friend for a long time that just opened a restaurant on 57th Street. He took over a very famous restaurant, and I'm blanking on the name, on 57th around Park Avenue.
I'm not sure.
So he was there at Matt to Matt, and people that were from the nightlife scene from years back, and it was great. It was great. All Noel's parties are good.
See,